hospitable and some quite impolite. I was asked by the Dean of Students, Charles Whitten, to speak in an event, and I described my experience as being lost in a sea of whiteness. Excerpts of my speech were published in the Carolinian magazine. My donations to USC libraries focus on distinct phases of my life, beginning with USC. I always said that I came to Columbia, but I brought the wonderful experience of growing up in Orangeburg with me. Great friends, outstanding education at Christ the King Catholic School and Wilkinson High School, inspiring adult role models, and the advantage of having South Carolina State University and Claflin University in my community. Our world was segregated, but absolutely enriching. Marching and picketing in the Orangeburg Civil Rights Movement made me a politically conscious person, which would serve me well in my activities at USC and in my political, legal, and civic careers. While I was at USC, I was encouraged by my good friend and roommate, Harry Wright, to become involved in student government and student organizations. I tried to make a difference by working from the inside with friends like now attorney Vicki Esslinger. My goal was to make USC better for African American students and all students who would follow me. I became active with the Student Union Lectures Committee, bringing, as Dr. Donaldson alluded to, Dick Gregory, Julian Bond, and Muhammad Ali to campus as speakers. I had lunch with Muhammad Ali during the time period when he didn't step forward and go in the draft. And he had a reputation of being loud and bragging. He was the most quiet, respectful person I ever had lunch with. It was just an incredible experience to have lunch with him. And as Dr. Donaldson indicated, went out with Julian Bond to the Fountain Blue and other things that I can't tell you about that trip. Dr. Harry Wright, Dr. Bruce Marshall, who was my international studies professor and advisor, and I worked as part of the curriculum revision committee in presenting a proposal to establish the first African American studies major at USC. We visited Duke and Yale as a part of our research and preparation. Some of the original documents related to that process were donated. Our proposal was implemented, and Willie Harriford was hired to direct the program. Mr. Harriford, would you stand? Right there. I want to give special recognition to Dr. Thomas Terrell for teaching the first Negro history course at USC. That was the term used. Dr. Terrell? I took that class, and I remember being in the class, and Dr. Terrell was just so taken with Harry Wright. He was a chemistry major, but the best student in his history class, and a person who I've talked about a lot tonight. Kenny Price, Raphael Lee, George Leaks, William Wright, who Dr. Donaldson referred to, James Evans, and I pledged Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity on campus, and were inducted into the Beta Rho chapter of Allen University's Kappa chapter. We had to bring in our national office and threaten a lawsuit, but we were able to establish the first Greek letter organization on a majority white campus in the South. The IFC, Fraternity Council, had a rule that you couldn't have a fraternity on campus if you didn't have a frat house. So how could we have a frat house and be a fraternity on campus? I mean, it made no sense. But we brought national office down, we threatened a lawsuit, and we established it. I was a colony president, and Kenny Price would become the first Polemarch and the first president of the Association of Afro-American Students. I have donated documents related to the establishment of Kappa Alpha Psi on campus. USC had an extraordinary international studies department with excellent professors and interesting students. It was a stimulating educational environment. I enjoyed the mandatory requirement of reading the New York Times and Washington Post each day. I received those newspapers by email each day and still read parts of them each day now. McKissick Library on the Horseshoe became my favorite place to study in a new home. My blue books with essays and exams from history, political science, and international studies classes are a part of the collection. I became the first African American to graduate from this department. While I was at USC, I was hired by the Voter Education Project to work with I.S. Leakey Johnson, who had just been elected with Jim Felder and Herbert Fielding to the South Carolina legislature, first African American since Reconstruction. My swan song as an undergraduate student at USC involved the election of my very good friend, Harry Walker, as president of the student body. Harry, would you stand again? My classmate, now attorney Dorothy Manigault, came very close to being elected homecoming queen. It occurred to me that the time was right to elect a person of color as student body president, which had never been done before at Carolina or a majority white campus in the South. Harry seemed the perfect candidate. He was handsome, smart, articulate, then with a beautiful Afro hairstyle. We both had a lot more hair than Harry was an establishment candidate by his credentials, but anti-establishment by his ethnicity. I approached Harry and he agreed to run, and I served as his campaign manager. Harry won for the first time without a runoff in a landslide in April. The next day it snowed. You know what they said? It was a big story. Today Show, Nightly News, Ebony Magazine, Jet Magazine. I mean, it was just a big story. And I donated those magazines to the collection. I am so proud of the institution that my university has become today. It has the largest number of African American students of any public college in South Carolina. African American students and graduates now have the same kind of love and devotion for this institution as graduates of historically black colleges have. Homecoming is a happening for African American students and alumni now. I'm amazed. After college, I thought I needed a change of scenery. I packed my newly bought by my parents Toyota Corona and left for the big city of Atlanta to attend Emory University, sight unseen. Now, I was scheduled to stay in the graduate professional dorm, and I heard about how nice it was. And so I got to Emory and I saw this beautiful, tall building. And I said, that must be the graduate professional dorm. And I went over there, and it was the undergraduate library. So it was a little disappointing. At Emory, I continued my involvement in student activities. I served as president of the Black Law Students Association and worked for the Georgia Service Center for black elected officials, working at the Georgia legislature with Julian Bond, Ben Brown, Senator Horace Ward, and others. I also worked in the office of Senator Horace Ward, who became the first black federal judge from the state of Georgia. And I spent one summer working in the legislative office of South Carolina Congressman William Jennings Bryan Dorn in his office on Capitol Hill. It was really interesting because Ms. Milley, to a great extent, ran the office, but she was never there. She was like Carlton, the doorman. She would be there, and you hear her on the phone, but you never saw her. She wielded an iron fist. I also worked in the campaign of Maynard Jackson, the first African-American mayor of Atlanta. I left Atlanta with a law degree and a smart and beautiful wife, Judy. I can't tell you how special Judy is to me. It was just really interesting when we met. She liked football, basketball, and she liked jazz. So I thought I had hit the lottery. And those of you who attended my mother's funeral, I talked about how my mother was really smart, number 2 in her college class by 1/10 of a point. And my mom typed all my papers. And when she typed my papers, I always made an A. And so I would write it, and then my mother would go back and just make it better. And so I'm very fortunate to marry somebody just like my mom, and that's that Judy is so talented, so smart, she can do anything. I mean, she used to teach the kids how to swim, and she couldn't swim. So, I mean, she's just remarkable, and I'm so fortunate to have her as a part of my life. So after I graduated with Emory with my law degree and my beautiful wife, to paraphrase LeBron James, In 1974, I took my talents back to Columbia and joined the law practice of I.S. Levy Johnson. Except he didn't pay me anything near what Miami paid Ron. I.S. paid me so little that people asked me, how much do you make? So I would say, 5 figures. And I was really close to not making 5 figures. Ironically, when I went to work with I.S., my first office was the office of Matthew J. Perry. I inherited his office in the law firm, and that was such an honor to me. A year later, Bill Toll joined our firm, creating the first racially integrated firm at the partner level since Reconstruction. Judy and I moved to the Cottontown neighborhood of Columbia, and with my former USC student government friend Scotty Barnes, we formed with Bill Ham and Joe Watson the North Marion Street Neighborhood Association, which became very active and very well respected. In 1983, I became an improbable and unexpected candidate for Columbia City Council. A young lawyer with no formal experience as a candidate, I'd been practicing 10 years at that point. I was encouraged by friends and community leaders to run for city council in a historic race. I made my announcement from the traffic island on my street to symbolize my commitment to preserving neighborhoods. The field was comprised of 8 candidates, including the popular former HUD official, Jerry Knightner, and former Richland County Councilman and civil rights lawyer and legend, John Roy Harper. I hired a firm headed by Tim Rogers to help me with the campaign. The firm included Harry, Dan Todd, and Karen Sundstrom, who worked with me on Harry's campaign at USC and in Harry's administration. Tim Rogers, Joe Grant, Dick Harpootlian, and I.S. Levy Johnson were instrumental in helping me plan my campaign and teaching me what I needed to know, what I needed to do. My constant question to them was, can I win? And I did. E.W. Cremati and I were elected to become the first African Americans since Reconstruction to Columbia City Council. I was re-elected in 1986, 1990, and 1994 without opposition, and served 2 terms as Mayor Pro Tem. I retired in 1998. I have donated videos of speaking engagements, copies of speeches, council documents, letters, photographs, newspaper articles, and many other documents related to my time of service on City Council. Though I'd only served in the background and on the fringes of politics until I ran for Columbia City Council, I enjoyed the intellectual challenge and the ability to affect change in a positive way as an elected official. E.W. and I worked very closely together to try to make a difference. We knew that we had a responsibility to be effective fighters for the black community in our individual districts, while also having a vision for the betterment of the community as a whole. I have never wanted my career to be defined only by my service on City Council. I thought this was only part of who I was and what I had to contribute. When I was a student at Christ the King, we often viewed enrichment presentations about individuals and subject matter to supplement our formal education. One of the features that made an impression on me was about Thomas Jefferson. It was stated that Thomas Jefferson believed that you should have a balanced life. He thought that you should work hard and find time to enjoy life. I tried to do that. They didn't teach us about Sally Hemings at that time. I have had a very active legal career. I served on the board of the South Carolina Trial Lawyers Association and became the first African American president, which provided me the opportunity to serve on the national board of the Association of Trial Lawyers of America in its minority caucus. I've been an active member of the South Carolina Black Lawyers Association and the National Bar Association. I also served as first African American president of the Richland County Bar. For more than 10 years, I've served on the national board of the American Board of Trial Advocates and served as the first African American president of CBOTA, which is composed of 10 chapters in 10 of BOTA states. Joel Collins is here today. Joel, please stand. Joel's the national president of BOTA. Joel reported me to be on the executive committee, and Reese Williams is here, who was past president of BOTA. Reese, please stand. Also. Both of them have been great mentors for me. I I also presently serve on the National Center for State Courts. The collection contains speeches, programs, and documents related to my service in these organizations, including remarks made in honor of my mentor, Matthew J. Perry, as a recipient of the Johnny Cochran Soaring Eagle Award, presented by the American Association of Justice at their convention in Seattle. But I must say that one of the greatest honors of my life was having a personal relationship with my role model, Judge Matthew Perry, and by his request to make remarks at his funeral. My civic involvement includes service on the Columbia Zoning Board, the Richland and Lexington Airport Commission, where I served as chairman right after 9/11, the boards of the Urban League, the United Way of the Midlands, Columbia College, the Garnet Way, University Associates, South Carolina State University Foundation, Standard Federal Savings and Loan, and presently South State Bank. I served on the vestry of St. Luke's Episcopal Church. I also served on the board of Cap City Club, a private dining club that was established to allow all people the opportunity to be a member, regardless of gender, ethnicity, or religion. I became the first African American chairman of the board. Two of my extracurricular passions are music and art. I started collecting art my first year in college. I bought an oil painting of Miles Davis that's been with me every place I've gone. Anybody who's been to my house knows that picture of Miles. One of my greatest joys was serving as chair of the president of the Columbia Museum of Art, and trying to have an impact on the direction of the museum. Over the past 18 months, I've had the opportunity to host a jazz radio show on 92.1 The Palm, Jazz in the City. I host the show live, and all the music is from my personal collection of 43 years. It has been a great experience and a dream of a lifetime for a music program. Let me just say that Sunday will be my last show, unless I can get some sponsors. If you're interested in sponsoring or know somebody who'd like to sponsor, please contact me, or Sunday's my last show. I've always used my position to promote the arts in Columbia in any way possible. Speeches, notes, playlists, photos, flyers, and other materials document my involvement in cultural activities. Judy, is there anything I haven't done or I've missed? I've covered it? Okay, I'm going to close. My life has been an improbable journey full of ironies, intersected by special people and experiences at different times and places. And as it turns out, a life filled with many firsts. I never thought that my life's work and propensity for being a pack rat and a hoarder was relevant in this collection of information. I'd like to thank my mother for allowing me to store boxes of information in her attic. I'd like to thank my wife for allowing me to store boxes of information in our attic. I'd like to thank my law partners for allowing me to turn the war room at our law office into my personal storage room. I saved all of these materials because they were important to me. I never thought they would be important to others. Libraries, librarians, learning, and service continue to be an important part of my life. I do hope that God has more for me to do. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. And yes, I do continue to collect and hoard.
Particularly Luther for being such a gracious and dedicated donor and friend. You can't imagine his efforts with Louisa's help in annotating the material that he has transferred to us for the collection. And we so appreciate all that effort, not only in retaining that, but in sharing that information with us that's helped make our job so much easier. Now, please join me in the gallery for refreshments and conversation. If you exit out those doors to my right, you'll see the gallery. We've got food and drink out in the Britton Gallery. And thank you again for joining us today. And we hope this won't be your first visit to the library.